Hello, I am Nurbek Savitahunov. Welcome to the news from Kazakhstan. In the city of Khorog, at the administrative center of Gorno-Badakhshan in Tajikistan, around 3,000 troops were pulled in on Monday morning in connection with the murder of the regional department head of the State Committee for National Security, Abdullah Nazarov. The crime occurred on Saturday evening.
According to official version, the general's murder is linked to a faction involved in tobacco contraband. As per our data, about 300 local residents launched a protest in front of the administration headquarters demanding a fair investigation of the general's murder and a resolution of the conflict in a peaceful manner. People are afraid that the area could be subjected to a military operation. All stores and markets are now closed, with police stepping up ID checking in the settlement. A criminal investigation was launched following General Nazarov's murder, with main suspects identified as the general's former fellow servicemen. However, news agency Regnum reports that field commanders claim they have nothing to do with the crime and ask the president of the country to interfere. Russian BBC service reports, quoting foreign ministry sources, that Dushanbe could possibly use armed forces against people involved in the murder. According to most recent reports, 2 of the suspects in Nazarov's murder case have been arrested and the special operation is still underway. Regular residents here just want the mercenaries to be taken away from Khorog. The police is looking for those 4 people and additional information about them. The population was told to go home and send their loved ones, including children, somewhere safe. All markets and stores have been closed as well.
Central Asia expert Alexander Knyazev believes the wording tobacco products is not entirely accurate, saying that drug trafficking is at the core of the issue. After a peace agreement signed in 1997 in Moscow, which outlined a 10% quota in government posts, he received a government job as an opposition member. It may be that President Emomali Rakhmonov is thus squeezing competitors and monopolizing control over drug trafficking, says Knyazev. In the meantime, the expert does not rule out that the search for murderers may escalate into a conflict, which will also play into the hands of official Dushanbe.
It just seems that a small war in Gorno-Badakhshan would really benefit many people. Since signing the truce in 1997, the area was under little control from Dushanbe. Besides, Emomali Rakhmon needs to reinforce his position, as it's generally very weak within the country overall.
Lieutenant Kadyrov, who shot his fellow soldiers, behaved inappropriately and was unable to explain the reason behind his actions at the interrogation. Details of the incident that took place on Monday evening in the military unit of Priazorsk in Karaganda region were revealed at the military prosecutor's office. The assistant on duty wounded 2 officers from a service weapon. Psychologists may soon speak to Lieutenant Kadyrov.
If his actions are considered atypical, it is possible that he will go through medical examinations. One shot was made when 2 officers fell down while they were trying to disarm the man. When they fell, Kadyrov fired the gun at close range and wounded Jakobayev in the stomach and Lieutenant Colonel Amirov in his foot. According to preliminary findings, this was an internal conflict. Lieutenant Colonel Amirov entered the room and asked the contract soldier to report on the situation in the military unit. Allegedly, Private Kadyrov gave a rude reply, which led to a verbal exchange and a fight. Officers were wounded when they were trying to disarm Kadyrov, who was threatening them. The incident happened at around 11 p.m. A criminal case was initiated on the charges of attempted murder. The investigation of the incident is currently underway, with one of the victims already discharged from the hospital.
Border Guard Vladislav Chelykh's psychological expertise concluded on Monday, reported chief doctor of the National Psychiatric Center to the soldiers' relatives. However, journalists were unable to confirm the information over the phone. What is known is that on Monday, July 23rd at 11 a.m., doctors of the Psychiatric Center gathered for a consultation. The results are unknown. Chelykh's attorney Serek Sarsenov says experts will give their findings to the prosecution and only then to the defense. The border guard himself may be transported under guard to the detention ward.
The Soldiers' Mothers Committee has appealed to the President's administration, requesting to meet with the parents of the killed border guards, and also contacted the General Prosecutor's Office demanding to name the date when the results of the genome expert evaluation regarding unidentified bodies from the Arkhangelsk border outpost will be announced. Lyudmila Kostenko, the head of the committee, says that due to the protraction in the matter, the parents of the 3 border guards are still in the dark regarding their sons' lives, as their bodies have not been identified yet. As for Chelykh's family, his mother Svetlana Vashenko has been denied a visit with her son, currently held in custody. The results of expert evaluation will not be given to us, but to the investigator, who should make us aware of the results. The investigator will take them to Astana, since they simply want to keep the information away from us, because the less we know, the better for them. All the information regarding investigation is classified. The investigating officer referred to an article under the criminal code, and according to this article, I can't visit my son until the investigation and expert evaluation is completed.
President Nursultan Nazarbayev met with Agriculture Minister Asyljan Mammadbekov in Akorda on Monday and gave him several instructions.
In particular, the head of state noted that many droughts have occurred this year, which will result in a challenging situation for agriculture. The most affected areas are reported in Kostanay, Akmala, Karaganda, and Aktobe regions. The president asked to monitor grain prices on the domestic market, and the decision seems rather timely. On Monday, bread prices jumped 10% in the Uralsk region, but dropped in Shymkent. Having reported on the situation and taken new directives, Asyljan Mammadbekov proceeded to speak to the reporters. The head of state assigned tasks for timely preparation for harvesting, as well as providing assistance to our agriculture companies that suffered from drought.
The publication Utanmaz Media reports that the bill for the president's dinner in Machakizi, a restaurant in the popular Turkish resort in Bodrum, totaled $34,000.
According to press reports, the president arrived at the restaurant accompanied by 5 dignitaries and 30 other people. The facility has been previously searched by 3 police dogs. Nursultan Nazarbayev has also brought 3 of his personal chefs, although they were not allowed to cook. The owners of Machakizi treated the guests with the dishes on the menu. Later, the restaurant manager, Sazir Eruzan, refuted the rumor about a $34,000 bill and information about the dog search. Per official data, President Nazarbayev is currently taking a short vacation.
Results of the survey on how satisfied is the population with the judicial system were published on Monday by the public fund Transparency Kazakhstan. They coincided with the reaction to the appeals process in the case of Shetpe station riots, the softening of sentences for police officers, and the former leadership of Zhanaozen. More in the next story.
It was a rare but a very informative press conference. Nurtai Stayev's attorneys publicly criticized the verdict issued by the Taras City Court, which sentenced their client for 3 years imprisonment with confiscation of property on car theft conviction. The defense believes that the court failed to provide enough evidence to prove the guilt, and therefore the ruling will be appealed. The court acquitted Istayev on 2 counts, but then reclassified one of the charges. It did so just to satisfy someone, and it had the intention to sentence our client no matter what. A report on the public opinion about the justice system was made during another press conference on Monday. According to the survey results of Transparency Kazakhstan Fund, more than a half of respondents tend to trust judges. 45% of people surveyed positively described the justice system, while 53% of them believe the system doesn't rely on objectiveness of verdicts. One of our main goals was to see the level of corruption in the justice system with a survey of court visitors. We found that on the 10-point scale, it is around 5, 4.7 to be more precise. According to our findings, it is evident that courts in Taras and Almaty are most corrupt, with a score of 6.4. Courts in Ust-Kamenogorsk, Aktobe and Astana are less corrupt, at less than 4 points. The results of the survey showed that the judicial system is not transparent for regular citizens, since it's impossible to gain access to any necessary information. The survey was conducted in all regions except for Western Kazakhstan, where it only reached Aktobe. We have little information about the current situation in Akta. We only know what we learned from the media. Everything that is happening there reflects problems exposed in our study. Otherwise, we had no special surveys on the matter. Nevertheless, it is very important to hear the opinion of Aktau residents. At the end of the last week, the former mayor of Zhanaozen, Zhalgaz Babakhanov, was released in the courtroom with 2 years of suspended sentence. The appeal of the ruling regarding Shetpe villages was not satisfied, while the penalties for Zhanaozen policemen who opened fire at civilians were eased. It seems that the researchers wouldn't have any problems with surveying the people near the courtroom. The judge didn't pay any attention to the process while the prosecutor was busy playing video games. Not a single claim from us was considered there. Nothing's changed. Our hopes never came true. Have you seen the judge and prosecutor? They're illiterate. The court didn't examine the case objectively, and therefore no fair ruling was made. Human rights activist Evgeny Zhovtis paid a high price for his multi-dimensional opinion about the national justice system when he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for a fatal car accident. While behind bars, Zhovtis had ample time to examine verdicts of his cellmates and says that only in 10% of the cases the ruling was justified. Our justice system is infected with phone calls to protectors and bribes. There is an ongoing conflict between those who use personal connections and pay money. Getting back to Zhanaozen and Shetpe trials, thus I believe rulings were unjustified there, especially compared with the trials of Zhanaozen policeman and mayor. On August 2nd, the Aktau court will hear the appeal on the case of mass unrest in Zhanaozen. Unfortunately, many do not believe in the positive outcome already now.
Work is fast underway on the nation's leader's assignments voiced in his article on Kazakhstan's social modernization, reports the hastily convened board of the Ministry of Labor. It is noteworthy that the State Secretary Mukhtar Kul Muhammad took part in the meeting. He was the one who called on inspectors to become advocates of the strategically important program and criticized the ministry's work, in particular in the field of settling labor disputes in factories.
One step forward, two steps back. The optimistic report of the Ministry of Labor was subjected to criticism. Since the beginning of the year, 110,000 people have signed a social contract for the Employment Program 2020. By now, almost $350 million of allocated funds have been spent already, although some citizens trained at public expense are still unable to find jobs. During the employment program implementation, only about 30% of its participants who completed training managed to find jobs in the Mangistau region, 40% in the West Kazakhstan region. The Secretary of State, Mukhtar Kul Muhammad, brought some diversity to the stale reporting spirit of the meeting, although his interest in the social sphere seems unusual. However, the president ordered all officials to promote his idea, thus Kul Muhammad was well prepared for his speech. He asked why in the last 6 months no one has bothered to utilize the money allocated for the development of rural infrastructure, and also touched upon the latest labor conflicts. The president has lifted the taboo on the topic, thus the State Secretary liberally distributed statistical data. According to General Prosecutor's Office, 23 labor conflicts were recorded in June of this year alone. Some aggravation is expected at gold mining company Altynai Kokshetau in the Akmola region, while 900 workers at the Shantobe mine are not happy with their payment conditions. The number of labor disputes and conflicts is growing. There is no feedback between employees and employers. Regional departments of labor and social protection do not always follow up with business leaders and workers. I've confirmed facts that workers do not get paid on time, and delayed salaries issues are still pressing even to this day. Mukhtar Kul Muhammad also criticized the microcrediting program, since its implementation leaves much to be desired in some regions, particularly in Kostanay. Only one credit has been issued there in the last 6 months, and just 2 contracts were signed in the entire last year. The Secretary of State asked the minister to address and resolve these issues.
The state intends to partially defer responsibility for social payments for pregnancies and maternity leaves on the employers, and to put the responsibility. The new bill is being prepared in the Kazakh Labor and Social Protection Ministry. Some MPs and trade union representatives have already criticized the initiative. More details in the next report.
The Ministry of Labor is drafting a bill which includes a new responsibility for employers to pay a portion of childcare benefits. This happens at a time when the head of the National Bank says that Kazakhstan is considering to raise the retirement age for women up to 63 years. The Ministry of Labor and Social Protection has not officially refuted the idea and instead proceeded with a new bill initially proposed by President. In his program article about the 20 steps to social modernization, the head of the state noted that women are asked for 2 things during the hiring process: the employment application form and a resignation letter due to pregnancy. MP Azat Piruashev, the former head of the Entrepreneurs Union, rushed to advocate the employers. Employers pay income, social and other taxes. They will have another one if this document is approved. What business can sustain a situation when its employees can ask for temporary replacements on top of a substantial support payments, not small and medium ones? This will lead to a situation when employers will just stop hiring women. Many are curious about the eventual vote in the parliament when the draft will be introduced there, and whether it's going to reflect the issues encountered by the family of Vladimir Natochi. His daughter Marina worked for a private company for 2 years and was asked to resign once the management found out about her pregnancy. Moreover, the employer issued her a reference which indicates she was officially paid only $20 per month instead of actual $700. Now Marina cannot receive maternity and childcare allowances, complains her father. But the courts are siding with the employer, while Vladimir Natochi is trying to attract the officials' attention to the problem by organizing protest actions. My daughter worked at the company professional and was given a completely useless reference. All the courts of Almaty region recognized this document, yet when she applied to the State Center for Social Allowance, they told her that it is invalid. This made me file the lawsuit against the company's executive director, who personally issued the reference. But everything is repeating once again. Kazakhstan has already went through a similar development, says the head of free trade unions Larisa Kharkova. Before 2010, employers had to pay maternity allowances and leaves, while pregnant women were forced to resign. In addition, employers included contract clauses which made women agree not to get pregnant for several years. It looks like the government should be more consistent in its attempts to improve the demographic situation, says the expert. Around the world, the state takes care of the future generations and pays all social benefits for the child's birth and child allowance. But in Kazakhstan, the authorities want to make the employer responsible for all this once again. I strongly believe that's not right. Union leaders claim that the government's idea to distance itself from the financial support to pregnant women, as well as increase of retirement age, is nothing but gender discrimination. If introduced, Kazakhstan will violate the previously ratified conventions on maternity protection, while the state will not only lose healthy generation of workers, but also provoke the worsening of labor markets and unemployment situations, says the opponents.
Atyrau residents entered into disputes over oil workers' children in kindergartens. To recount, last week, the governor of Atyrau region proposed to dismiss oil workers' children from municipal kindergartens, thus creating a scandal. Samruk Kazana Welfare Fund was outraged by the proposal, while some public activists supported the idea, claiming oil companies should provide a specific social package for their employees.
Когда говорят о том, что компании перечисляют такие огромные
They report on tax incomes from the salaries paid by the company, but let's examine how they allocate collected taxes. Immediately after hearing about Samruk Kazana's complaints, the mayor rushed to explain his statement, saying the region is lacking about 20% of preschool institutions. Thus, the state will be able to save money if commercial entities, including oil and gas companies, could build their own kindergartens. The official also stressed that the administration is ready to maintain the operation of such organizations, but does not want to spend public money on building them. Residents of Atyrau, though, do not share the governor's opinion. I think it is wrong, and I believe kindergartens should remain independent of parents' occupation. I don't see why kids have to depend on their parents' jobs, be it in oil industry or medicine. It is hard to change kindergartens, especially if a kid has been going to the same place for 2 years. I'm not going to switch kindergartens.
Residents of Karaganda's Besoba residential complex, where one of the blocks collapsed in April, organized an unsanctioned protest action last Sunday. As law-abiding citizens, they gathered at the Liteyshik Stadium, which is the only place in the city where it is allowed to hold protest actions. However, they were asked to leave the location.
This rally is unsanctioned, thus we simply have to do something to stop it. Don't give us empty promises. Stop official lawlessness. We need our own Shenrak. These are the slogans residents of the notorious Besoba housing complex were able to shout for about 15 minutes. Tenants of still standing blocks have gathered on the outskirts of the city. Officials told them openly that since their apartments are deemed dangerous for living, the entire housing complex will be razed and replaced with a new one in its place. Unfortunately, that's as far as official statement went. People demand to create a special commission that will officially declare their houses uninhabitable so that the local administration can allocate them equivalent housing. Otherwise, they threaten to go to Astana with their demands. This poster says the mayor is sleeping, Besoba is not. We mean this quite literally, as people here lost all sleep, waking up at any sounds, concerned for their safety and safety of their children. Why is this going on in our supposedly lawful state? Why there is no response from the authorities? We're appealing to them. How long can this last? I can't sleep or eat. How is it possible to live in this constant fear about what will happen to us next? We don't have any land in the city, there is no fund, nothing, there's nothing for us. This is why we want to attract public attention to our troubles.
In the last 6 months, over 500 fires were registered in Kazakhstan. This is twice as high compared to last year, note the Emergencies Ministry. More details next.
Russian wildfire monitoring website Kosmosnimki shows several hotspots in Kazakhstan. Most of them, over 100, are registered in the Kostanay region, 31 in the east of the country and about 20 in the north. According to Kazakhstan's Ministry of Emergencies, Kostanay and eastern Kazakhstan regions will suffer from the fires the most. However, the rescue workers on sites assure that the number of fires is not unusual for this time of year.
До этого горели
Previously, we had reports about fires in the suburbs, the forest zone and Karbalık district. All these cases are linked to the rising air temperatures. All fires were controllable, and because of that, all were contained and put out on time. Above all, the main reason for fires is a very dry and hot summer, and we see the fire season starting earlier this year because of the population's carelessness with fire. According to the Emergencies Ministry, more than 400 fires were reported in the last 6 months in forests, about 300 in the steppes, altogether affecting about 14,000 hectares of land. This number is 47% higher than last year's statistics. The weather forecast is not too optimistic either. Experts predict a decrease of abnormal heat levels, but only by the end of the month. In August, high temperatures will settle again in most of the Kazakhstan's regions. As for the outlook for August, according to the preliminary forecast, there will be no rains or strong winds across the entire territory of Kazakhstan in the beginning and the end of the month. Scorching heat is expected in the middle and end of August as well. The temperature will rise to 30 degrees in the north and 40 in the south.
A petition addressed to the Finance Ministry was presented on Monday at the press conference in Almaty by the Association of Trade Unions of Kazakhstan and the Trade Union of Entrepreneurs within the service sector. Businessmen are concerned by the main clauses of the draft on regulation of production and circulation of tobacco products. According to them, the new regulations on sales will harm the country's economy.
We have spoken to the law drafters and MPs and told them that there is no need for the proposed changes, because now we have 8 legal acts in Kazakhstan that put the entire tobacco industry and tobacco products distribution under strict control. The changes, if adopted, will ban the sales of tobacco products in vending kiosks at night and at the weekends, as well as making licensing of products compulsory, with the licensing fee of slightly above $1,000. People who have not reached 21 years of age will not be allowed to work in the industry. By this point, over 4,000 entrepreneurs have signed the petition. Defending their businesses, entrepreneurs say that the proposed changes will result in mass bankruptcies and unemployment. Officials respond that there is nothing to worry about, as even the concept of the law has not been approved yet. The draft concept does exist, but it has not been approved by anyone yet. It is too early to say anything now, and I'm not even authorized to comment on this. Besides, there is no legal document related to the proposed law.
This is all we have time for now. See you tomorrow. Have a good day.